Good evening, everyone. Good evening, dear friends. I hope everyone is doing well here. I think I have been. I was late for a couple of minutes, maybe around 2 or 3 minutes. But there was a technical problem that was later solved. Si Mustafa Morshid, hello. Deweezy, good evening. This friend Deweezy has just joined us, I guess. This is the first time he greets us. Natalie Leblanc, good evening. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you very much, Natalie. Kautar Ominetlet. Ominetlet. Oh, never mind. Okay. So thank you for joining us. Good evening, Kautar. Hiba Hinawi, good evening. Samira Mustafa, Ustada Samira, good evening. I hope everyone is doing well here. Asma Duhan, good evening. Doctor, I hope you're doing great. Doing great. Thank you very much, Asma. I hope you're doing great too. Chernobyl, hello. Thank you. A little bit tired, but we need to go along, Well, let's say everything is fine for the moment. Barakallahu feek. Thank you. Si Mustafa, greetings, Samia. Nuni Nunus, good evening, Nuni Nunus, with your suggestions in phonology. I remember that. Okay, thank you. Reem El Uthmani, good evening. Good evening, Reem. Barrahu, good evening. I hope you are doing well. Amina Bey, good evening. Good evening, everyone. I just wonder whether there are friends who will join us after. Otherwise, we will have a short live and leave. Well, this will depend on how students will be reactive to the contents of this live, and also on the questions that they may have, pending questions now that the exam is drawing to a close. Close is drawing near. Okay, Euphoria, hello. I hope you're doing well. Siyasin Razok too. Hello, Professor. Hello, Siyasin. Well, would you kindly take the trouble to share the link to this live session and hit the like button in order to get more people, okay, to watch this video. Okay, Yasin Razzouk, good evening. Siazdin Sabir, good evening. Mohammed Lazraq, good evening, Professor. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for the review session. You are most welcome. See Mohammed Lazraq. LKM, hello. Mustafa Murshid says it's done. Yes, sure. Thank you very much. Perhaps this video needs more likes. You have only 9 likes here. 20 people are watching me, but there are other people probably who watch me from external platforms, perhaps. Okay. Amina Bey says, Professor, I have a question. It may be off topic. Is Moroccan Darija a language or a dialect? Well, this is a good question in sociolinguistics, Amina Bey. This is one way of telling you that the notion of a language itself depends on the school of thought that you are adopting. In traditional linguistics, in prescriptive linguistics, you do have a distinction that is clear between what a language is and what a dialect is. Is a language, for example, a system that is standardized? Is it a system that we use in certain contexts? Is it the one that is officialized? Previously, people used to make this distinction in order to indicate that there is a clear distinction between what a dialect is and what a language is, but with the implied and said oftentimes assumption that a language is an imperfect that a dialect is an imperfect version of a language. So when you have language versus dialect, the two are not considered on an equal footing. Which means what? Which means that the use of dialect is pejorative, is derogatory sometimes, and it's associated with with speakers who probably are not as literate as the ones who speak a language. However, the term language, especially after sociolinguistics knew a number of the sociolinguistic theory knew or witnessed a number of modifications. Now people are talking about not language versus dialect. They are talking about language as being an umbrella term for a number of varieties. Okay, so we speak now, instead of a darija or a dialect, sorry, of which darija is an example, we speak of varieties. For example, the dialects. Moroccan Arabic is said to be a dialect. Okay, current maybe approaches to doing sociolinguistics would refer to that as a variety of a language, because the notion of variety does not bear any value judgment, as is the case with the traditional distinction between a language and a dialect. So the term variety is the one that is more, okay, that guarantees neutrality and is an objective use of the term. But if you have this in a class of sociolinguistics and you have an article that draws a distinction between the two, then you have to look at the criteria. For example, you can say that a language is codified and is standardized and it is used in official contexts, while a dialect is used in informal contexts. For example, with friends, and it is acquired natively. Okay, generally, according to this way of looking at the thing. Now, according to Ferguson, a linguistic situation like that of Morocco is characterized by what is referred to as diglossia. Diglossia refers to what? Refers to the existence of a language and a variety of this language. And the language and the dialect, entertain a relationship like historicity. One of them is a historic evolution of the other. That's the assumption, at least in Ferguson. And the second characteristic is referred to as repartition of function. It's like phonemes that are in complementary distribution. Okay, so the repartition of function means what? Means that you have a language and you have its variety, its dialect or its dialects perhaps, and these are they exist in complementary distribution, in the sense that what we believe to be a dialect, as Natalie rightly says, dialect is a low variety. The low variety, and even the term low variety, is not that objective. The fact that you call it low, what is low about it? After all, the human language is there to serve the purposes of communication. And the high variety, or let me call it the so-called high variety, is one that is used maybe in official discourse. It is used in the law court to teach, content courses, at specific institutions. For example, Friday sermons, if we're talking about Arabic here, standard Arabic, and so on and so forth. Overall, the use of language versus dialect is not without underlying assumptions about one being superior to another, and current approaches to linguistics, are ones that do away with these, ranking of language, because we are not supposed to exercise any judgment when it comes to naming a given system by calling it language or dialect. Okay, I hope I have made a survey of these, and if the term language now is used as opposed to dialect, it's used only in a loose sense. In a loose sense, it means that it does not have that that judgmental side as used to be the situation a long time ago. All right. Fine, but we're still, there are people who would let's in Morocco, for example, there are people who would say that Darija is a language and Amazigh is a dialect. On what basis have you or have these people, or do these people base these sorts of claims? Sometimes there is this layman's definition of what a language is and what a dialect is. All right, so let's Mohamed Zrakh, Natalie, Amina Bey. So you're talking about Moroccan Darija. For Moroccan Darija, use the more neutral term variety of Arabic. Moroccan Darija is a variety of Arabic. Also standard Arabic is a variety of Arabic. Okay. Nice. Language is a dialect with an army. Okay, look at Si Mustafa. Look at what Si Mustafa has written. A language is a dialect with an army and a navy. It means what? It means that if a group of people decide, for example, to make of a dialect a language, they can make of it a language. But a language, quote unquote, of course. Because when you give it a variety a status, when you standardize it, when you print out, stuff in books using that language, when you when you read the news bulletin in that language, then you are what you are doing is elevating its status to what is called language. And this is exactly what this is testimony to what I have said when I talked about language, dialect, imply or conjure up a distinction between a prestigious and the less prestigious variety of a given language. Nathalie Leblanc writes, also a language can include a written form, while the word dialect is often used specifically to refer only to spoken. Yeah, according to one definition, you are absolutely right. So a language that can be written, that has a writing system, and and a language in which people can express themselves using paragraphs, essays, books, write articles, books, etc. This is given the status of a language, and I join Natalie's remark to Mustafa, to what Mustafa rightly says. So without this navy and army, and without this decision to codify a language and give it a written form, without these, languages are equal. So using the term variety is a neutral way of referring to these entities. Si Aznoud Abstar, I hope you're doing well, Mr. Aznoud. I'm very glad that you have joined us. Si Abstar Aznoud, who was a brilliant master's student and is now a brilliant doctoral researcher. I wish you all the best, Si Aznoud. He's accomplished a number of things, language use, he masters language, written English, masters research tools, very broad knowledge. That's really interesting, to see someone like Siab Star. Okay, high and low varieties, Natalie. Yeah, you said that. Thank you. According to me, Moroccan Arabic is a language. Feel free to cite me. Okay. See, Mustafa, you are influenced with your Englishes, right? English with capital E, English with small e. Okay, thank you. You made me laugh. Thank you very much. All right. So, good evening, Ustad Atimad. Good evening, your academic companion community. Thank you for welcoming our friends here. I hope more will join. Asma Ibn Nasser, professor, does Moroccan Arabic consider as a language? Is Moroccan Arabic considered as a language or as a dialect? Because some professors said it is a language and others it is a dialect. This reflects theoretical faith of the people who you can argue that it's a language, you can argue that it's a dialect. For example, from a purely Chomsky perspective, from prescriptivist perspective, I would say Moroccan Arabic is a language. Why? Because it has native speakers, and then Muqawimadiya language because it has a native speakers, because it is acquired, because it has rules, despite the fact that the rules are mostly unconscious, but they are still there. They are reflected in native speakers' intuitions, and therefore it's a language. So there is nothing that can usurp Moroccan Arabic of its language status. And the professors, or let me not, they may not refer to professors, the people, because there are people who believe that that it's a dialect. These are taking another perspective. These are looking at the phenomenon, at the thing from a completely different perspective, the perspective of language referring to a system that has, explicit rules, and that has, as is the case with the standard Arabic, classical Arabic as well. You have rules that are explicit, and this is what you studied. We all studied at the level of primary school and junior high school, and they continued into the baccalaureate years. So when you have, for example, al-Ajarumiyya, al-Ajarumiyya, or you have another, and you have the rules that you see, the rules, for example, for assigning nominative case, accusative case, like المنصوب الاسم المنصوب المجرور الى اخره. You have rules. Sometimes you have explicit rules, but sometimes they are organized into stanzas so that they can be easy to learn. Voilà. So this will depend. So neither is wrong, but this needs to be justified on the grounds of the theoretical framework in which this or that judge of these statuses, is reared. It all depends on his theoretical, framework. Nice. A language does not have prestige. It is the people who speak it that have prestige, and by default, it's associated with those people. That's true. Even in attitudes, for example, people may have attitudes, negative attitudes or positive attitudes towards a group of people, and therefore the conclusion is, oftentimes they have this positive attitude about those people. That's true. That's true. Fine. So a language does not have prestige. Yeah, in itself, it does not have prestige. In essence, no prestige. Language itself is an endowment. It's a prestige in itself. But when you want to rank languages, from the prestigious to the least prestigious, this again needs the intervention of people. Thank you. Okay, language attitude, Natalie has written. That's why I was just talking about attitudes as a case, as an example. Yes, okay. Before that, we have Hiba's statement that language is defined as a system of communication with its own set of rules of grammar and vocabulary and syntax. It is often standardized and used in formal contexts such as education. When it is standardized and given a role to play, for example, that's what we call a repartition of functions. Of course, when you are giving it a function that is in formal settings, in domains like the law, like religion, like politics, and in that, so that means that we have assigned to it a prestige. It's like we are trying to make something normal, something maybe superior, or something you see of high quality, let's say. So according to Hiba, you are right. So all languages have what Hiba has written. They are systems of communication, as is the case of Moroccan Darija, for example. Okay, they have syntax, even pragmatics, they have everything there. There is nothing in essence that makes what we call a language more prestigious or higher in status than the law of varieties, except when a group of people interferes and takes a decision in this regard. Okay, Mustafa, I am writing a whole doctoral dissertation on language attitudes. This is really interesting, and I hope we will have occasion to read your thesis as soon as possible. Attitude towards language variation, not language as static entity. That's really interesting. Asma is thanking me for what God knows. Perhaps because I answered the question that she asked. All right. Okay, do you have other questions, my friends, before we move on to the discussion of what we are supposed to talk about today? Nothing. Okay. So let's just take the data that I have that I have uploaded, that I have, so in the post. So let me go to it. I think I have it here. I have the data set here. Let me just have a remark about that data that you have there, the short data. Remark number one, it was sent to me by someone who has a name that means peut-être un faux compte, je pense. I think it's not a genuine account with a message, Professor, could you please, da, 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 da. There are things I do not want to interpret, but in any case, I I have decided to include it, and it's on purpose, just to see that, just to say that no matter what message we have, there is nothing to hide. So we will. I could have ignored that message, but curiously, I just tried to open the profile of that individual, and I think that profile does not work. Remark number two about this data set is that we have, especially for items. Are you there, ladies and gentlemen, first? واش متبعيني ولا لا؟ 1 2 3 4 5. Okay. Yes. Remark number two about this. Okay, thank you. Remark number two about this data is that if you have item 1, item 2, item 3, because item 4 and item 5 can easily be, ruled out. ما داخلينش في اللعب, as we say. ما داخلينش في الحساب. Why? Because there is a vowel that is made opaque due to a deletion process. So we are left with item 1. We have to account for 1, 2, and 3. And you may see in the data yourselves that there is no alternation in this data set that repeats. For example, we have sorry. For example, in. So look at the suffix in. Where else do you have in? You have it just in one thing, in one element. Where else do you have n? Just in one example. Where else do you have on? Just in one example. These examples, objectively speaking, now we will do our job here, but objectively speaking, the data underdetermines a given rule. You cannot base that on just one single element. Okay. Now for the other items, the story is easy because there is a deletion process due to the encounter of a vowel plus a vowel. Okay. The other remark is that there is a vowel in number 4. Is that a diphthong? Let's interpret it as a diphthong. If it is a diphthong, there is going to be a rule. If it's not a diphthong, the rule will still apply, but with one more specification, and I will tell you. Okay, so let's follow. Now, what do you notice? Have you had a look at the data, ladies and gentlemen? I hope the student, the profile, let me say profile, not student, the profile who sent it to me, did so with good intentions. Okay, nice. So let's read this. Hill, hair. Okay, and the possessive of hill, for example, his hair is hill in. So you have in here. The second, the prefix, this e, apparently because you have vang, it becomes vangen. Okay, that's with an e. What do we have here? Luh, it's luhon. Do you have suggestions for this? Because I have had 2 analyses, but I think the second analysis for me is the one that can work for this data set. Do you have suggestions, ladies and gentlemen? What happens here in this data? Just base that just on 1, 2, and 3. The other ones, we will handle them later on. So you have Natalie says, look at what Natalie has written. The alternations that we observe in the 1, 2, 3, in the 4, you have in, n, on, and then n. N has 2 occurrences. Okay. Now, I would love to hear you, making your guesses or placing your guesses when it comes to in and on alternation. Okay. Looks like it's a bit difficult, right? Coronal and anterior consonants. I think, Natalie, the story does not have to do with the influence of consonants. I think this. I have this. I had the hunch just once I looked at the data, but this does not have to do with consonant coronality or, unless let's see. Here, Lin. No. I don't think so, Natalie, because coronal and interior consonants, because we have 3 alternations. In the third example, we will be blocked if we adopt this approach. So, without further ado, because our friends are waiting also for questions to be answered in syntax. So what we have here is a situation where we in order to get rid of this Luhon, number 3, because that's the one that it was a problem initially. So we need to postulate that the suffix for the possessive, I repeat, the suffix, I mean the my, in order to say my, because it's all about the alternations with the word meaning my. So the solution is to consider number 3 on as being the underlying morpheme, the elsewhere. Okay. Now, if you do this, why is it that O has undergone? So normally what we should expect with respect to Vang is Vangon. But we don't have on. We have what? We have in. So O becoming A, O. O, what is O? O is a back vowel. It becomes a front vowel. So when we have a back vowel, O, becoming a front vowel, wait a minute. Yes. So we have O, which is a back vowel. I'm talking about example number 2, my friends. The best way of looking at this is to say Vang plus on. You see? Vag plus on. But in the surface form, we don't have Vangon. We have Vangen. Meaning what? Meaning that we have O, which is a back vowel, becoming a front vowel, because in the stem we have a front vowel, which is A. What do we call this process? It's a form anyway. It's a bit complicated because anyway, I will tell you the story of this language because it's what? So what do we call this? What do we call a vowel which, what do we call the process according to which a back vowel, for example, undergoes a fronting process or a fronting in the existence of a front vowel? We call it what is the process? That's vowel harmony, Natalie. Thank you. So we have a case of vowel harmony here. Okay, so we have a plus back becoming minus back. Okay, with a consonant when a vowel is minus back, when a stem vowel is minus back. Does it make sense? Does this vowel harmony, do we have vowel harmony in Hilin? So hill, normally we should have hill on, yes or no? Hill on, but again, O becomes E, meaning what? Don't we have a case of vowel harmony here? Yes, we do. You see? So we say that a vowel becomes high front, for example, when the stem vowel is also high front. Okay? But frankly speaking, this is an exercise that is derived, that is taken from a study, an article by Parker, 1970. He worked on this language, and he provided a morphophonemic study on that in his article. And the data that is presented here is not sufficient for the global, because actually outside of this data, the story has to do with vowel raising processes. But we don't have the right to do it here, because we are supposed just to deal with the data. باش نقول لكم بلي the exercise, has undergone some censorship. All right. So this is the idea there. The solution came from the fact of postulating on as being the underlying morpheme. That's the thing. Okay. So let's not pursue this further unless you have questions about this in this regard. And I agree that this is for S5 students. This is a very difficult exercise, actually. So at least that there are a lot of complications, and even the solution I provided you with is not without its problems, but it's the one that is optimal. Otherwise, there is no straightforward way of coping with things like this. So just feel at ease. Okay, so let's move on. Perhaps, do you want us to carry on with the other, with exercise 2 and 3, or you think it's okay? Should we carry on, or should we move on to syntax? Natalie is the only one interacting with me here. So since Natalie is the only one, we'd rather have a Google Meet where there is Mustafa Murshid, Natalie. That's it. Okay, so let's move on to see what happens to the other exercises. Using feature notations, write rules expressing the following phonological. Okay, processes. A vowel becomes short when it occurs before a consonant word finally, or word and consonant cluster. This is very interesting. Yalla, اسمعوا. So let me read this. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So we have this: using feature notations, write the rules expressing the following phonological processes. A vowel becomes short. How do you write a vowel becomes short? Suggest, because this is interactive. Yeah. A vowel becomes short. Just a vowel becomes short. How do we say that? احنا كنهضروا على هذا الاكزرسيس رقم 2. السؤال الثاني. So a vowel becomes short. How do you specify a vowel? Either we say, okay, V, just like that, becomes short is minus long. Minus long. Barahu, very good, Barahu. Thank you very much. Mrs. Barahu, thank you. So, like this, a vowel becomes minus long. Word finally, or before a consonant cluster. This is very interesting. Look. We have to say, this is the environment in and before. Word finally means before the word boundary. Donc, this is what we should have. Okay, this is, so slash, it means in this environment, ولا in this context, and this represents the context in this vowel here, this vowel. Yani this vowel, when it is here, it becomes minus long. Now, I would like, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you, because there is a new notation we have not covered. It's when you have options, when you have the either or situation. You see? Either or. So when you have either or, you use the brace. Okay? So it becomes minus long, and I have this. Either word finally, like this, and or before a consonant cluster. Yes, or before a consonant cluster. Yeah. CC. The consonant cluster is CC. Thank you. Okay, so the brace is also used for either or. Okay, so remember that the braces are used for two reasons, in two contexts, in two ways in linguistics. They are used to represent a morpheme. For example, like yesterday, we talked about the possessive morpheme or the agentive morpheme or whatever. You have, if it's a morpheme, if it's a prefix or a suffix, usually it's prefix, suffix in the exams that you might have, then you have to represent them between braces. Braces also serve the purposes of saying either or in phonetics or in morphophonemics. X is realized as either Y in this context or Z in this context. But here we have the same structural change. That's why the braces are not put here, they are put here. Because we don't have one realization here and the other. It's the same. It's a short vowel. So the brace should be open for the alternatives. When do we say either or? Do we say it here? No. We say it here. So where you will say either or, you have to open a brace. For example, look at this. X is realized as Y. Here, here, here. No, is realized as, excuse me, هنايا Y, Z, and N. شوفوا معايا. Here, I have put it here, but here, no. Here, it's outside. Why? It's because you have different realizations. Here, we have one realization, but different contexts. I hope you understand it. Say yes if you have understood this. Ask me to repeat if you think that I should repeat. Yeah, but I hope rightly says that. So this is for a vowel. We can spill out this into its features. Yes, Baraho is rightly saying that, you know. So a vowel is realized as what? What is the basic feature of a vowel? Of course, it's plus syllabic. Plus syllabic. And because we have a feature here that is minus long, it means that we have plus long here. Absolutely. Even here, when you write vowel, we have to specify it for length. Absolutely. A vowel which is plus long becomes minus long. Long. Here, I think it's this is the way to go. Okay. So initially, I was more concerned with this. So you are right. Thank you, Barho, for pointing that out. So here, vowel needs to be specified this way. Okay, this way. Good. Okay. So what is the word final consonants are deleted after an unstressed vowels. Word final consonants are deleted after an unstressed vowels. Word final consonants. Okay, let's write the rule here. What is the paraphrasing of this? Let's paraphrase this rule here. Professor, some assimilation exercises are confusing because it contains tricks that are similar to other processes. Yeah, that's one of the problems, of course. And this is what phonology looks like, but just do what you think is logical, and things will be solved. Maybe with more training, you will not have this problem anymore. Okay, LKM. Okay, so can we move on to the so word final consonants are deleted after unstressed vowels. Can any one of you paraphrase this rule? Just take the rule in other words. No? You are less active than yesterday. Phonology turns out to be less appealing than syntax. So yes, that's true, Natalie. Word final consonants are deleted after strong vowels. Word final consonants are deleted. Consonant word final before a consonant before. So a vowel becomes short. No. So word final consonants are deleted after unstressed vowels. Sorry. So consonants are deleted. So we have here a consonant which is minus syllabic is deleted. When is it deleted? After an unstressed vowel. After an unstressed vowel means what? Means you have this, and then you have an unstressed vowel here, and then you have the environment. So we have either you write V minus stressed or plus syllabic, and stressed, yes, and minus stressed. Okay. Wait a minute, let me see if the rule is so word final consonants. Then we have to specify word final consonants. Okay. This is the rule for this, this type of, this is the formal way of writing the rule. Anything else here? Now, how about plain English for these rules? A consonant, which is a sonorant, minus sonorant, becomes alpha voice with a consonant, okay, which is minus sonorant. Okay, yes. Can you make an attempt? I give you this exercise, very easy one. Natalie, can we talk about weak syllable? Yes, a weak syllable, because you have stressed and stressed, but we don't have a way of treating this. Do we have the notion of a syllable here? No, I don't think we don't have this. Unstressed vowel, no. The notion of a syllable probably is not for this rule, but that's an effect, of course, when you have a vowel reduction or the absence of stress, then automatically the syllable can be weak. Okay, but generally a weak syllable is one. It's not one that is not stressed. A weak syllable is one that has the nucleus of which is probably, you know, a vowel. I'm sorry, a shfa, a reduced vowel. Okay, so here, Natalie, we don't have to refer to syllables at all, since we have to abide by the rule. Okay, but then even stressed, you know, for stressed vowels, we're talking about syllables that have weight, you know, the heavy and the light syllable instead of the strong and the weak syllable. So that's the technical term, Natalie, is heavy versus weak. Heavy versus light syllables. But that's another story. Okay, so here, this is what we have. Barho, the voicing of an obstruent. Okay, let me see, Mrs. Barho. Okay, so we have, okay, the voicing of an obstruent follows the voicing of an obstruent that comes after. A nice way of writing it. Another way of writing it, so let me read out what Mrs. Barho has written. The voicing of an obstruent, علاش obstruent? Because we have minus sonorant. So a consonant which is minus sonorant, obviously it's an obstruent. Okay? Without even a minus sonorant, just the feature minus sonorant means that we have an obstruent. So an obstruent, okay, follows the voicing of the obstruent that comes after it. Okay, wait a minute. Yes. Another way of expressing this is to say that an obstruent agrees in voicing. We can say that. You see? An obstruent agrees in voicing with the when it follows the voicing of the obstruent that comes after it. That comes after. So we say that an obstruent agrees in voicing with the obstruent that comes after it. That's it. So the two versions are nice, are well done. How about number 2, vowel? Okay, it becomes stressed, and then you have that C0, and then you have word final position. Can you write the rule, ladies and gentlemen? Yalla, Fazi. No? It's very easy. This is for the questions that are somehow difficult, I take the initiative to answer. Okay. The C0 there stands for the fact that you can have either a consonant, one consonant, or no consonant. One consonant or no consonant. So vowels become stressed in word finally, or in the word final position, or just word finally. And so where? Vowel stressed. Now we're talking vowel becomes stressed when it occurs before the word final position. Let me look at the rule. A vowel becomes stressed. Yes. It's word finally before a consonant. Word finally before a consonant. The reason why you have the C there, the 0 there, is that you have sometimes you have either you have no consonant or you have one consonant. And the exact reason is that some syllables have what we call branching coda. It's complex coda where you have 2 or 3 consonants. Okay, there the 0 means sometimes you have no consonant. Sometimes you have one consonant. Okay, so Barho says the vowel becomes stressed when it occurs before a word final consonant. That's a very interesting thing. Yes, exactly. Okay, now let's move on to the other one. Plus sonorant becomes syllabic. Yalla, tell me. Yalla, tell me, please. There is one way of a very specific, this exercise was meant to target very specific concepts. If you cannot do it, let me do it for you so that we can move to other stuff. Okay? So we say a sonorant becomes plus syllabic word finally after a consonant. Word finally after a consonant. It means that for this rule to apply, for a sonorant to become plus syllabic, it has to be after a consonant and before with word final position. So I repeat the rule. A sonorant becomes syllabic, okay, word finally after a consonant. Word finally after a consonant. This is exact. Look at this. Barhu, a glide becomes syllabic. No, do we have a glide here? Mrs. Barhu, there is nothing that indicates that we have a glide here. And anyway, Mrs. Barhu, I don't think that there are glides that can be peaks of syllables. There can a nasal, yes, a liquid, yes, but a glide, no, I don't think so. I really, really don't think so, for obvious reasons. Because if it becomes plus syllabic, it becomes a vowel. The closest entity to the vowel is the glide. علاش شنو الفرق بين الجلايد وسميتو والفاول؟ syllabicity. You see? So here, certainly they are not talking about glides, but they are talking about sonorants in general, as is the case with the English language, okay? So I don't think that's the problem. So it's not a glide, it's just a sonorant, Mrs. Barho. Say yes if you are convinced, say no if you have a counter argument, okay? So it's a sonorant becomes syllabic. It means that it can function as peaks of the syllable when it occurs word finally after a consonant. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So this is a good thing because this will help us understand, help you understand, for example, that a glide is not a candidate for plus syllabic at all. It's either an onset or a coda because it's in conflict with the vowel with respect to this feature. Once it acquires this feature, كتولي vowel ما كتبقاش glide. A glide that is specified plus syllabic is a vowel. All right. My friends, would you like us to move to other things, or you have other questions, or shall I leave you to your own devices, or yeah, you suggest. I am here for some more time, so let me know what you have in mind and what questions you have that need to be answered. We would like more examples of what, Mr. Mahdi? More examples of rules like these? Okay, nice. So you have this. Yes, okay. Okay. Wait a minute. I hope it's clear. إلا ماشي clear now. You have this rule here. I will not speak. My God, I'm terrible at writing on the board these days. I'm sorry, I have to نقرب شي شويه هذا الشيء هكا. Perhaps I need يلا هكا. I think it's clear now. So this one here is this. It's minus sil, and then you have alpha voiced. هذه هي هذه. So it's here. Yes, please. You do this. Can you write the rule here? It looks like there is no interest from students this evening, indicating that they may be busy, I think. The voicing of a consonant agrees with the voicing of the consonant that comes after. So yeah, a better way of saying this, perhaps, yeah, what you are saying is correct, Mrs. Barho. So we say that a consonant agrees in voicing with the consonant coming after it, that comes after it. Fine. So X agrees with Y in something. You can do it also for vowel harmony. A vowel agrees in height or in labiality, means in rounding, with the so alpha means agrees. Yes. Hiba, so smart of you to say this. اللي عنده مشكلة في alpha means there is agreement. Alpha high. Alpha is agreement. It means what? It means if I have two elements, agreement. Let me say agreement. This is a consonant or a vowel. This is a consonant or a vowel. If this is voiced, this is voiced. If this is voiceless, this is voiceless. Donc, an alpha voice means agree with. Yes, agree with, yes. Okay. They agree in voicing and etc. Hiba's comment is a gem, of course. And your confirmation of Hiba's comment is also a gem. Or disagreement if we have minus alpha. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Barho. In terms of when you have, for example, a dissimulation or you have disharmony, vowel disharmony. But this is very rare, to be written like minus alpha. Rare. So you expect more alphas than minus alphas. Okay, thank you. That's really nice. Yeah, Hiba has solved the problem of the alpha because the people see alpha and in syntax they have this alpha, move alpha, well, and alpha sequence beta if and only if you know that. So alpha means agreement. Alpha يعني plus or minus. يعني if it's plus, it's plus. If it's minus, it's minus. Voila, that's the thing. Usually in the alpha notation, when you have alpha something, جهة أخرى غتكون عندي alpha something. That's a proof of agreement in something. ما يمكنش مثلا يكون عندي alpha voice here وجهة أخرى يكون عندي فيها alpha place. No? Or alpha manner or nasal. It depends. Nasality or whatever. Okay, so thank you. Hiba has saved Many lives here. Okay, nice. Natalie, it's a binary value. That's true. That's true. That's true. Okay, it's a plus or minus, of course. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, should I close this live or do you have questions? Tell me, but keeping me speaking in front of 22 people here without any reaction from you is a little bit a waste of energy. Yes, we can move to syntax. Ask me questions, or what would you like me to do? This is your academic companion, so you need to give the prompt. Alors, fuel syntax. I think we have remnants or remainders or leftovers from yesterday's exercise. So let's move on to syntax and see what we can do there. And I hope it's going to be of some use to the students, many of whom are absent. Okay. Let's finish the correction, sir. Yes, I'm coming to that. Okay. I don't know where we stopped, but let me just look for. I think they are here. Yeah, okay. So no, you choose, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me an indication. Which one would you like us to do? Just go, please. Just go ahead and suggest one that we can do together. I don't know what we did, actually. So can we start with the one that says state in the first question, A and B, you have state at least two arguments in favor of the innateness hypothesis. Okay, state at least two arguments. Look for this, please. Look for this. Okay, can you listen? Okay, let me greet Frank Joseph. Says, good evening, Dr. Amrous. You do a very good job for students and teachers. All my encouragements. Thank you so much, Frank Joseph. I'm really glad to have you with us. Thank you so much. Really kind of you. Okay, so can you elucidate on how native speakers have intuitions about ill-formed and well-formed structures? Yes, we can do that, Hiba. Before we move on, but get prepared, please. We will consider the exam that starts, well, the exercise that starts with A, state at least two arguments in favor of the innateness hypothesis. We are coming to that after I react to Hiba's question. Hiba is asking me to elucidate on or upon. Yeah, we can do that, Picasso, but let me know what it starts from, because I lost track of everything. Let me just know what the question is about, and we'll go there. Okay? قول لي غير la première question باش كتبدا احنا غادي نمشيو. En attendant, I will have to answer Hiba because she asked a question that is important. Sorry for this noise. So sorry. Okay, let's talk about native speakers' intuitions about the sentence well-formedness and sentence ill-formedness. Now, of course, we are born with universal grammar, and you know that these are pieces of information that you already know. We are born with a language acquisition device, and we are endowed with the capacity of using our language and producing sentences that we have never heard before. And you see, we know that the impoverished data, as impoverished as it is, it can serve as triggers, for the formation of rules and for the acquisition of language in general. Okay, what we achieve towards the end is a native speaker's competence. Competence refers to the whole set of rules at different levels. Spanning phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics. We're talking about also sociolinguistic competence and so on and so forth. Although Chomsky talked about these core, components of phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax. Okay, so by the age of 5, we become perfect users of a language, and to such a pass that we can produce sentences we have never heard before, no matter how complex they are, and we can interpret sentences we have never heard before, despite or no matter how complex they are. Now, we say that native speakers have achieved full competence. And competence, the notion of competence, how do we know that there is competence? Is it accessible? No, it's not accessible. The only access we have to the competence of a native speaker, especially the one who has not been introduced to a grammar course, who doesn't know the meta language, who has not been at school, he did not study the grammar rules of his language or her language at school. So, but despite that, they can judge a sentence they can judge whether a sentence is correct or ill-formed or well-formed or ill-formed. It's not just sentences; it's also whatever structure there is, the morphology, the morphemes, the structure of a morpheme, the pronunciation, and so on and so forth. Now, in a direct answer to Hiba's question, because this one was just a groundwork, just to put you in the picture, native speakers do have intuitions, and it's thanks to these intuitions that native speakers have, we get to know about the characteristics of their competence. So competence is reflected in, number one, it's reflected in performance, yes, but it's accessed through intuitions. What do you mean by intuitions? It simply refers to the native speaker's reaction, okay, to sentences that are well-formed and the ones that are ill-formed. How do they react? For example, if you say, he do his work, will the native speaker say he do his work is incorrect because there is a problem of agreement because you have a third person singular and therefore you have to say it does? No. The native speaker does not know this. Supposedly. We're talking about a native speaker probably who is not a linguist, is not a grammarian. So this native speaker, we say that this native speaker can react to a sentence like this. He can laugh, for example. Oh, he said he do, haha, and then start laughing. Or he can make fun of you if he is an impolite native speaker. He can make fun of you, or he can recast, do. For example, he do his homework, he do his homework, and then maybe he may accompany this with a laugh. These are examples of intuitions. Or simply he can say, he or she can say that this is ungrammatical, just like that. Or we can say, or she can say, we don't say it like that. No, we don't say it like that. Look at how these are native speakers, and their judgments are reflections of their intuitions. Okay, so we say that native speakers' intuition consists in being able to tell whether this structure, لاحظوا معي أنا ما كنقولش sentence, because also in phonology, let's imagine, let me give you, just get out of the syntax context. Let me give you an example of phonology, morphology. Just follow. Just imagine we have this word here. Many of you here would say that the right pronunciation of this, so I'm talking about English, of course, not French. ماشي important. This is important, right? Now, just imagine I talk to a native speaker and I say, and I say, important. Okay, this is an important story. They will burst into laughter. Give us important. Do we say important? No. The fact that the native speaker has laughed at important, and most likely when you ask him, why are you laughing? We don't say important, we say important. This means what? This means that the native speaker does not know about stress placement, does not know about these things. He may not know what stress is, and he may not know what the syllable is. But he will tell you, we don't say it like this, we say it like this. So this is an example of native speakers' phonological competence reflected in his or her intuition about the phonology of the language. Another example, this time from morphology. You talk to a native speaker and you say, I have two interesting book to read. Two interesting book to read. So this is a reflection of their competence. This is intuition. They say, well, we don't say two book to read. We say two books. Come on. You see. So this is intuition. This is an example of an intuition about so this is native speakers' intuition about the morphology of the language. So intuitions can be phonological. I gave you this example. They can be morphological. I give you the example of books. Okay, there are, for example, two. Let's say the plural of children. If they say children's or child's, there are two childs there. Come on, we don't say childs. You see, so native speakers have intuitions about the phonology of the language, the morphology of the language, the syntax of the language. Okay, for example, when you ask a question like where you will travel tomorrow, of course the native speaker will not say, well, you have a complementizer with plus WH that attracts info, etc. Therefore you have to do this inversion. He may not know these things, but he can react to this by saying, "No, stop, we don't say it like that. We say you should say, where will you, or when will you, not where you will." You see, so this is a good reflection. This is a good illustration of how native speakers' competence can be reflected on the syntax, or in their judgment of the syntax of the language. Okay, so normally a sentence that is normal means it's accepted. We call it a well-formed sentence. A sentence which is wrong is an ill-formed sentence. So in generative syntax, these terms are used. الجملة الصحيحة بالعربية والجملة اللاحنة. الجملة اللاحنة means لحن في القول. Okay, means that it does not, it's not said or pronounced, whatever, like that. Okay, so you also have intuitions about semantics, about pragmatics, and so forth. All right. So, but if you are given this question, you see, you need to choose one or two, because you are asked to write a paragraph between 8 lines and 12 lines. If there is a question like this on the day of the exam, and you are asked to write a paragraph about it. If it's an essay, which is unlikely, probably at the level of S5, but maybe at the level of masters, they may have essay questions. Anyway, I hope I have not missed a question. Can you elucidate? Okay, Nathalie Leblanc says yes. Picasso, can we continue with the one we did yesterday, sir? Tell me what it is, please. I don't remember it, I swear, because I was very tired yesterday. Bint Akhu Zakaria, hello. What does a dissonant coda in phonology? What does a dissonant coda mean in phonology? I'm afraid I'm not sure about this word dissonant. For a coda, can it mean dissonant? I'm afraid I cannot. Please check the word itself if it's the right one. Otherwise, I can tell you about the coda, but dissonant, this is the first time I hear it, to tell you the truth. Okay. So Picasso, it starts with a short paragraph. Okay. Wacha. Write a short paragraph. Let me check. Data sets. Write a short paragraph. Write a short paragraph, yes. Competence, performance. Okay. Where did we stop, my friends? I found it. Where did we stop, please? Nuni nunus, so it's implicit knowledge. That's true. Another way of saying implicit is tacit knowledge or implicit knowledge. That's true. Nuni nunus. Muhammad Zarak, intuitive judgment. That's true. So it's about the abstract knowledge that native speakers. Yes, that's competence. That's true. That's competence. Competence is reflected in what? In performance, and the linguist has access to competence through intuitions. Stress to distinguish between noun and verb. Chernobyl, in what context are you saying this? Chernobyl, I'm afraid I've lost the point there. Noni-nonos, they might differentiate between well-formed and ill-formed structures. Absolutely. Hello, Aya. Aya bin C. Glad you are with us. Probably this is your first participation with us. Good evening, Professor. I have a question, please, regarding the sentence. We have read the history book that you have recently recommended to us. I think we discussed it yesterday. Hiba, or Aya, sorry. And we said the main point there is that we should we have read the history book that you have recently recommended to us. Okay, and then the embedded clause is an adjunct, but I am confused as to where it would be represented in the tree. Should we make a copy of the N bar or the V bar? Thank you. No, it's an adjunct to what, Aya? Aya and the rest of our friends here. Okay, adjunct of means it modifies. Adjunct of X means it modifies X. When I say I wrote the email quickly, quickly modifies what? It modifies the action of writing. It tells us about the action of writing. It defines the action of writing somehow. You see? Now, here we have read the history book that you have recently recommended to us. So that you have, that aslan, that is what? It means which. Which refers to the verb or to the noun? To the noun. So it's an adjunct to the NP, not to the VP. Yeah, it's an adjunct to the VP. But please notice, I believe that's an adjunct to the NP. Yes, yeah, that's true. That's true, Aya. That's true. That's true. That's true. You are absolutely right, Aya. Yes. Yes. ولكن, look, there is something that I don't know whether the other teachers have covered that, but anyway, there is a movement process there. It's known as the WH movement in relative clauses. Okay, but that's probably advanced. So if ever there is something like this, you just put a triangle to solve the problem. Okay, nice. So let's go ahead and okay, Nathalie Leblanc, also the adjunct that modifies the sentence incidentally. Bill remembers that the unhappy experience has been forgotten. Okay. Incidentally, okay, okay. Incidentally is more of a disjunct rather than an adjunct. Okay, so maybe the real sentence starts with Bill remembers. So it would be better that the word incidentally is inside the clause. Now it's outside. It's like a disjunct. So the sentence starts with Bill remembers, etc. Maybe if you say Bill incidentally remembers, yes, in that case it's an adjunct, and it's an adjunct to the verb remember. Here this is more of a disjunct, and therefore it's not part of the CP. Okay, or it's not part of the CP, or there is a recent model that incorporates this when we talk about some discoursal layers like the focus topic, and there might be other things. I lost track of those developments actually. So you see, in syntax, you are unlikely to be asked to account for seriously, comma, and then you have a sentence. So it's the clause structure. The syntax operates within a clause. So the clause starts usually with the subject. Okay, nice. Natalie, I hope I've answered your question here. And if there is any alternative explanation, I would love to get it. Okay, nice. So let me please know if there are, the question is, can we move on to the discussion of write a paragraph? Mary is proud of her parents. We talked about that. Draw a tree diagram. We did that. Give a principled account of the ungrammatical which sentences. I think we stopped here at number 4, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome, Aya. Go to number 4, please. Number 4. Número 4. Go ahead, please. Number 4 says, okay, I think we have, Yes, number 4. Number 4, give a principled account of the ungrammaticality of each of the following sentences. Jane will ring up her mother and up her sister. Okay, how can we argue for this? Yeah, is there anyone who would like to try? Is a VP, so we need to coordinate with the constituent. Yes, it's exactly ابتسام خشا. That's exactly the answer. Coordination here fails because when you coordinate, you need to have parallel structures. You cannot coordinate, for example, you cannot, I don't know, you cannot coordinate this with this somehow. You see, you cannot you cannot coordinate what will make you lose balance. You cannot coordinate, for example, he is a nice man and quickly. He is a nice man and quickly. No, this is ungrammatical because of the problem of parallelism, Nathalie Leblanc. Thank you very much. That's an issue of parallelism, except that in syntax, I would, recommend Ibtisam's answer because she's talking about the notion of constituent and she is talking about coordination. These two are brought together in this beautifully written sentence. This is really interesting. That's absolutely right, Erin El-Utmani. Very good. These type of questions, you are not asked to write a paragraph, just answer this way directly, and then you will go. But when you are asked to write a paragraph, you have to write a good paragraph, right? So for Peter explained all the to his wife problems, okay? All the his wife problems he had encountered, so in his life. So what do you think? Where is the problem here? In the second crazy sentence. No? Why is it a problem there? The answer is that all the here, because we have broken, okay, so Peter explained the problem to his wife, encountered his life, I think is the correct one. Complements are close to the heads, then are adjuncts. Okay. Explained the problem to his wife. No. It's just that I was thinking of another, maybe better argument. It's the fact that we have broken a constituent here, because look, when you have the article forms a constituent with the head and its complement. So here we have an intervening element. So when you say you have to have something that you have to have the V bar next to it. That's the idea. You see, unless you have an adjunct is just optional. Here it's not optional because you have to his wife explain X to Y. Okay, so we feel that there is a complement. This is also a complement. So here what we have is just the interference between the determiner and the head. Okay, for the nice student, this is not an interference because nice is an adjunct. I hope you understand. Okay, so that's one of the principled accounts that we can provide. Peter explained all to his wife, especially that you have all and then you have and then you have we need to have problem here. So all it selects, especially when you have this all and then you have another complement before before the head, that does not work, because normally the head, occurs to the left and then the complement to the right, especially that you have of the to his wife, not of his wife, he had encountered in his life. So here we have a breaking of a constituent. So a constituent here is broken. Okay. Now, the third one is asking us to briefly show how subject auxiliary inversion in English is accounted for in generative grammar. Give a simple example to illustrate and one argument supporting this account. I think we did this before, but we can repeat it. Okay, Hiba, thank you. Thank you. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. All right. So do you have a suggestion for this number 5 here? Briefly show how subject auxiliary inversion in English is accounted for in generative syntax. This is the first part. How is it accounted for in generative syntax? How is the subject auxiliary inversion accounted for in generative syntax? Very easy. In other words, what did we call it? It looks like you are tired, ladies and gentlemen. We called it inflection to complementizer movement. Subject auxiliary, it's what? It's will you go? Should you go? Did you travel? That was subject auxiliary. So how is it accounted for in generative grammar? By postulating that there is inflection to complementizer movement. That's what Aya rightly says here. Thank you very much. That's true. And Ibtisam says T to C movement, which is correct also. Thank you very much. It's good that you now understand that whether you write I to C or T to C, both are correct, because this just reflects the two standpoints from maybe two people. Okay, but both are correct. Okay, in my case, if I want to see I to C movement and I find out that student writes T to C movement, that's correct. No problem. I keep saying that in my classes. Okay, in the sessions. Okay, so what is the argument that you have there? Because we have I to C movement. The argument is that we have a C0, the complementizer, the head of the complementizer phrase, okay, come in with the feature of plus WH. And this feature, it needs, it cannot exist like that. It has to attract, okay, it has to attract the info or the T, all right? Yes, the plus WH. Thank you, Mrs. Barho. Thank you, Si Mustafa. That's true. That's absolutely right. So we have tense or inflection. Let's call it plus tense plus agreement that falls on T, tense, or on slash. We call it in my classes. I call it info or I, and this is in need of this plus WH. So plus WH attracts this inflection, resulting in a moved constituent from the inflection extraction site into the landing site, which is a C0 or the head of the complementizer phrase, which has the plus WH feature. Okay, it looks like we have people leaving, only 16 here. I understand that it's due to the exams and the preparations. Wish them all the best. Do you want us to go to another exam? Yes or no? نمشيو نشوفوا exam آخر. Okay. Hello, professor. Classes. Oh, I'm so sorry. أهلا أستاذة أسماء الصديق. I work in evening classes. I was the one who sent you the data. Ah, was it you? So I was wondering because, okay, since it was you, I take it back because because some people sometimes ask questions without good intentions. So since it was you, you did that with good intentions. So thank you very much for saying that. Thank you. All right. Okay. Now, somebody asked me here to talk about that's Picasso, I guess. Okay. Prof, can we answer this? Can we answer this question, please? How head movement applies in the following two simple yes/no questions? Will you help me? So let me write, will you help me here very quickly. Try to see movement. Will you help me? Will you help me? You have something. Okay, thank you, Asma. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Will you help me? We'll have something like this, C double bar, and then you have spec with which is empty because the specifier of the CP is universally empty. Its only function is to receive a moved WH phrase. Okay, so we have a C bar here, C bar, and then C0, which happens to be plus WH. Okay, so we have I double bar, and then you have N double bar here, N bar, N0, pro, and then you have U, and then you have I bar, then you have I0, okay, which happens to be a trace because it moves here, well, okay, as you can see. Let me do it in a nicer way. Well, here will something like this. Okay, will you? And then you have for Asma Sadiq, if you are listening, could you just tell us whether this is given at the level of the BA or at the level of the MA? Thank you. Okay, so here, and then you have a V double bar. Of course, you have V bar, V0, L, and then you have N double bar, N0, and then me, pro, of course, me. So was it Picasso who asked this question? This is the thing. This is the thing. Okay, now you have the other sentence, which is what? Are you happy? Okay, for are you happy? I feel like this. I have to do it. Let's talk about are you happy, please. Let's talk about the word happy first. Adjectives, can you listen, please? Adjectives, when adjectives are in an NP, they are adjuncts. We talked about that time and again. Some situations, for example, when an adjective is predicative, because we have a difference between attributive and predicative. You know, you can say a nice student, but when you say the student is nice, the story is different. Both nice in both contexts is an adjective. But when it is part of the noun phrase, then it is an adjunct. It is treated as an adjunct because you can say a student. But when you have the student is nice, nice here, yes, it is an adjective phrase, but we cannot say that it's an adjunct because we cannot say the student is and stop. علاش? Because the notion of complement means what? It means it completes something that has been said before. It means what has been said before is just 50%, and the other 50% is the notion of complement. So because we cannot say the student is, okay, we need the word nice. It means that nice is the complement of the verb. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we have here the verb to be, which is both a verb, and in the specific sentence, it has played the role of an auxiliary. So it does two jobs here. So what is the solution here? in order to draw a tree diagram for it. The solution, of course, that's a copula. Thank you, Mustafa. The solution is to say or to argue that the verb is there in its place, but the features fall on info, okay, on info or T, the T node. And this T, because it saw that there are WH features, it has run for them. It means that it has undergone movement. What is left under the V node is just be, the verb be, unconjugated. Do you understand? So it's like, here is, it's like works, where you have s that attaches to do, because we have a do support, and then under V we say just work, or you have plus tense plus agreement for works, and then you say just work there. Okay. So the right way of representing this sentence, which is, are you happy? Number one, it's to postulate that, not to postulate, it's to make sure that happy is the complement of the verb. هذا رقم واحد. Number two, the verb to be should appear unconjugated under the V0 node. Why unconjugated? Because the conjugate, the plus tense plus agreement, have been, taken by the T0 node. And this T0 node, you see, needs a lexical item or a grammatical item, needs a word. Features do not move. So what moves, they have to be, put in a word, and then they have to move. So that's why is, falls under the under info, and we have be here. That's one analysis. Another analysis, that's way one. This is way one. Way two is to say that we have the verb to be, which is. We have verb movement. The verb to be moves from the V0 maybe to the aux node, and from the aux node it has moved to the specifier of the not the specifier, to the C0 node. Is that fine? So we have one solution is to say, for example, that we have a V0 node here, and we have an I, for example, 0 node. And maybe, so this is something that we have, let's say. So V0 moves here. So is كانت هنايا من بعد ولات هنا ومن هنايا مشات ل C0. The reason why I am doing this is that this has not been, V movement has not been covered in our case, but this is a possibility. Okay, so you have V0 moving to I0 to take plus tense plus agreement, and waiting for, because they need this plus WH feature, is moves from here, upwards. Otherwise, another safe, the alternative solution is to say that you have here plus tense plus agreement, which becomes is هنا كتولي بحال will and should and etc. It's an auxiliary. And under V0, we can write just the verb to be. Okay? Here. So this has moved to the plus WH node. And B here will represent just the underlying representation, because B is generated here. It's a form of to be. It's like saying, for example, wanted. You write ed under info, and then you have want later, under the V0. So these are two possibilities to consider. And okay, so let's just move on, please, to the other. Before I get tired again, let's move on to the, which one? Which one would you like us to move to, please? Should we go to the, sorry. Thank you so much, Professor, for the time and effort. مرحبا سي well, so I know that now it's she's one of my best students. Thank you very much. Barakallahu fi. Alors, where would you like us to go? Which exercise? Is it the one starts with answer either A or B below in a paragraph of 10 to 12 lines? Or state at least? Okay, let's go to state at least. State at least. State at least. State at least. Yes. Okay. Let's do it this way. You have an exercise that starts with state at least 2 arguments, etc. Okay. Now, if you have a question like this one on the day of the exam, it means that you have a gift. Why? Because you have state at least 2 arguments. Very, very, make automatically. The best way of producing a paragraph based on this question is to say there are at least 2 arguments supporting the innateness hypothesis. Or one can support the innateness hypothesis by means of 2 arguments. By means of at least 2 arguments. Here, when I say when the exercise, or when we say at least 2 arguments, it means that there are more. Okay. Which means that if you provide 2 arguments in this paragraph and you illustrate them very well, and there are no problems in language, it's very nice. When you state 3, it's even nicer, but this is contingent on you writing in good English and keeping your paragraph between 8 and 12 lines. Now, what are some of the 2 arguments, or some of the arguments that can illustrate, that can testify to the existence of, or to the innateness hypothesis? What are some of the arguments in favor of the innateness hypothesis? Very well known. For example, we have the argument of creativity. Yes or no? Creativity is a good argument to say that. What is innateness hypothesis first? Innateness hypothesis means it refers to the idea that we are born with the capacity to learn language. It means that we have not acquired our language by listening to the people around us. We have not learned our language verbatim. It's the language acquisition device. That's true. So that's what the innateness hypothesis means. It means that we are born with the language acquisition device. How do we know? These are the arguments. One argument that testifies to the existence of the innateness hypothesis, in favor of, or that testifies to the innateness hypothesis, is creativity. Why? Because children were found to be very creative in the course of learning their language. How? Very creative. So these are you need to explain. For example, it was noticed that children make mistakes, okay, that show that they are actively learning the language. When you have, for example, a pattern like moved and talked and decided, these ed endings to express the past. When a child is presented with an irregular verb like speak, they often use they produce something like speaked. And this is creativity. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a deviant structure. It's a mistake. It's an error, let's say. But it's an error that is healthy because it indicates that the mind is doing its job. It means that these mistakes are guided by the computational system that is, guaranteed by the language acquisition device. The language acquisition device is an active device that picks up the language in a way that is marvelous and that is very quick and that is principled. Okay, so so creativity can be argued to be a good example of, a good illustration of the innateness hypothesis. That's a good argument for the innateness hypothesis. Okay. Yes, Natalie is talking about the poverty of the stimulus. Thank you. Yes, we refer to that as impoverished data. Poverty of the stimulus means what? Means that the data that will help us pick up the rules is underdetermined. is indeterminate. It means that it's not rich enough to help me, produce all my sentences in a correct way. All right. So despite the fact that the data is poor, despite that the input is degenerate, is in disarray, is disorganized. Why? Because when a child is in among his family members in a family gathering, especially in our context where people can talk, people will talk loudly, people will produce half sentences, people will answer just by means of a nod of the head. Otherwise they can produce 2 or 3 sentences that are incomplete, that are, despite this state of affairs, the child makes good sense of this jumbled and garbled data. Okay, so that's the poverty of the stimulus argument. In a second language context, for example, people are presented with neat input, with sequences, lesson after lesson, with exercises in a nice way, etc. And yet they fail to, acquire the language the way a child would. And again, this is testimony to the fact that we are born with this language acquisition device. Okay, good. So the children know sentences, dynamically. It's not just sentences. It's also, phonology, morphology, etc. It's not just syntax. But I would agree with you if you would like to use this as an argument to talk about creativity, to talk about evidence for the innateness hypothesis. This is nice. Okay. You also have the other argument is rapidity, the rapidity of language acquisition. How come that children who are mentally, maybe their mind is still, and their brain is still in the process of maturation, you see, they end up, and with no experience in life and with no interaction with people, by the age of 5, they pick up the language without any problem. Despite the fact that, of course, the stimulus is poor and the data is impoverished, but the phenomenal rapidity is indication that there is something inside their minds that helps them do the job. Okay? It means that they have not learned by heart what they produce. Okay? Plus, of course, this can be added even to as a creativity argument, that children can produce sentences they have never produced before, and they can interpret sentences they have never heard before. Okay, so these are at least 2 arguments that testify. So I talked about creativity, I talked about rapidity, but you can also talk about uniformity. Uniformity means that children around the world, they take roughly the same time to acquire the language, which means that this is species specific. It means that this language capacity is specific to the human being. We are born, in other words, with the same software in our brains. And this is why, all children around the world, we don't have cases, for example, where in society X or country X, people don't learn language until they are 12 of age. No, it's a human to learn a language by the age of 5. So here we have this argument of uniformity. Okay. Rapidity, mastering complex systems, that's what Nuni Nunus is saying, systems within approximately 5 years. So here, within approximately 5 years, we can use this argument twice. It's rapidity, but also uniformity. When you refer to all children in the world, they have the same rate, but they are also reported to follow the same path, the same route. For example, in acquiring the phonological systems of the language, most children in the world acquire L before they acquire R. Most of them acquire, for example, simple vowels like A and A before they acquire U, for example, or diphthongs. So monophthongs are acquired before diphthongs, and so on and so forth. So we are talking about here uniformity. All in all, in answer to this question, bear in mind that you have to write a good topic sentence. Bear in mind that the paragraph that uses, because the paragraph says at least two arguments. So if you have just two arguments, don't worry, but the condition is that these arguments need to be elaborated, written in good English, and specifically using illustrations, like the illustrations I've given you when you talk about creativity, and you say that sentences that they have never produced before. Try to think up a nonsensical sentence, and you say, well, we may never have heard this before, but we can still understand what it means. And the child can produce a sentence that they may never have produced before. Okay, so we have this argument of we called it creativity. We had this poverty of the stimulus, as Natalie rightly says. It means that the data is not organized, and despite that, we make sense of it as children. Over a period of 5 years, we become competent users of our language. We have, our linguistic competence reaches the stage of maturation. You see, and then you have this uniformity argument, and don't forget the concluding sentence, please. Okay, so let's move on, please, to the other question. Yes, you have a question saying, discuss the main tenets of behaviorist approach. Main tenet of behaviorism. What is the main tenet of behaviorism? Okay. The main tenet of behaviorism, or tenets of behaviorism, is that language is not an internal phenomenon. Is that language is a habit formation process. Is that children can acquire their language. By the way, they use learn rather than acquire. Can learn their language thanks to the the stimulus response, that principle. When they hear their parents, for example, say a sentence, they repeat it after them. So this is a tenet. Only this way can language be learned. And another tenet is that in case the child produces a deviant structure, he is liable to punishment, and he is liable to reward if he produces a structure that conforms to the language he is in the course of acquiring. Okay, so you have behaviorists believe that language is acquired through conditioning and imitation. That's true. So you need a stimulus and then a response that will cause behavior. Okay, so language is verbal behavior that is acquired as a habit. Okay, thank you. Chernobyl, language isn't just learned through reinforcement and behaviorism, but comes from innate knowledge. But look at this, ladies and Chernobyl and the rest. Look, when you have like you have question, you have choice B or topic B there. It asks us to talk about the tenets of behaviorism. ما ندخلوش generativism there, because after all we have just one paragraph. So we should not refer to the other side. Just answer the question, stick to the question. Otherwise, you will have a problem of coherence. Okay, just answer the question the way it is asked. سولوني على tenets of behaviorism. I talk about tenets of behaviorism. Okay, I should not move to say however, to the middle of the paragraph. Some people make this mistake. To the mid, I reach the middle of the paragraph and I steer towards Chomsky, and no, because the question did not ask you to compare. Okay, just talk about what you are supposed to talk about. Nuni Nunus says, it states that learning a language is similar to learning a behavior, any set of behavior. That's true. Just as we take time to learn, for example, how to play the guitar or how to ride a bicycle, we don't do that at one go. Okay, so it's a behavior that is learned through repetition. So à force de forger, on devient forgeron. As we repeat a given behavior, we acquire it, we learn it, and it becomes a habit. All right. So that's why, for behaviorists, language is a habit formation activity. Mohammed Al-Zarq, mechanical repetition, thank you. Focus on verbal behavior and reinforcement. All these concepts, fall under the behaviorist tradition in language acquisition, in first language acquisition. Of course, by the way, this has been taken from, it was taken, this influenced L2 acquisition at one point in time too. Natalie, it becomes unconscious. That's crushing. That's crushing now. Yeah, it becomes unconscious, except that the behaviorists may not like referring to or using the word unconscious, because when you use unconscious, you are talking about the power of the mind. So it's better that they use it just as a habit. They use the word habit. I'm sorry, they use the word habit rather than the word unconscious. It's a habit that they have learned, and this habit can be reinforced by a reward. So you have a reward, punishment, and then as ways of reinforcing a given behavior. Okay, so let's move on. If we have, please don't forget the concluding sentence again. Draw a tree diagram for the following sentence, assuming X bar theory, and provide arguments for the constituent underlined. Okay, for this specific sentence, ladies and gentlemen, so, and it becomes unconscious. So Nuno says children are born. Yes, blank states. It's blank slate, not state, and learn through environmental influences. That's exactly the point. That's true. Oh yes, yeah. When learning the guitar, for example, yeah, that's even here, Natalie. The word is automatized. It becomes automatic. It's automatic means you don't need to think about it. It's a habit. You see, sometimes there are specific words that one can use, but the other cannot. But I understand you, so it becomes unconscious. Means you don't need to think about it. You don't need to any meta knowledge, any strategy, any conscious strategy about that. Okay, good. So let's move on to the discussion of a tree diagram that you have there. We have read the history book that you have recently recommended to us for the tree diagram. Again, what do you have here? What do you notice? You notice that in this tree diagram you have a relative clause, yes or no? Where is the relative clause? Show me is it a relative clause or not? How can I know that you have recently recommended to us is a relative clause? Tell me, I need your answer here. That you have recently, etc., is a relative clause. How do you know? What did we say yesterday? If you have that, oh, thank you. Natalie says that, yes. If you have that, which can be a synonym of which, it means that the clause is relative clause. Okay. So we have read the history book, which you have recently recommended to us. That's a relative clause. And in this relative clause, in relative clauses, what we have is WH movement in a relative clause. Okay. In my case, I did not cover that. Okay. I did not cover that. So here, the tree diagram should be as follows. Okay, you have read the history book. Okay, let me try to do it here. It's an adjunct, of course. It's an adjunct, that's true. So for the moment, since you are probably exam-minded, so I will not delve into WH movement in relative clause, but I will draw a tree diagram for the rest, and I will use the triangle just to show the position of this relative clause here. Okay, so what we have is, let me go back to this. We have read the history book that you have recently recommended. History book. History, is it a complement or is it an adjunct? I need to read complement or adjunct. History book. The word history in history book, is it a complement or is it an adjunct? It is a compliment. Thank you. It is a compliment. Thank you. Yes. Natalie and Nunos and Reem. Yes. Yes, that's very nice. Natalie, has provided us with an argument because we can paraphrase history book as book of history. And therefore, it is a compliment. Thank you. So let's now move on to the drawing of the tree diagram. So we have read the history book that you have recently recommended to us. Okay, we have read the history book. So we have C double bar. We have read the history book. Oh, Anaya. So C double bar. Spec CP is universally empty. Okay, like this, I think it's better. Spec CP. And then نقدر نبدل هذا نشوف. Yeah. Okay, so we have read the history book that you have recently recommended. So we have C double bar. Okay, spec CP universally empty. Remember that it's here only to host a moved WH word. And then you have C bar, C0, the feature plus finite minus WH. And then we have I double bar here, I double bar, N double bar, N bar, N0 pro we. Okay. And then you have I bar, and then you have I0. Have read, have recently read. So have here is the element under which tense and agreement fall. So it's I0. So we have here. Look at how right have. Okay. Have. Okay. This is have. So we have read or recently read. I'm sorry. We have read. Oh, that we have read. Okay, so we have a VP here, V double bar. The adjunct here should be branched from V double bar or from N double bar. The adjunct ديال سميتو. Look, you have a relative clause here. Read what? Read the history book that you have recently recommended to us. So here, it's not, there is no adjunct to the verb. We have a V0, which is read, and its complement, it's the whole thing after. Okay? So we have a V bar, V0, all right? And then we have read. So what do we have here? Read what? What is this? The history book that you have recently recommended to us. All of it is a noun phrase. Alash, because we say you have read it. Because there was a question about arguments. We have read it. What have you read? So in a question, what replaces the whole thing? The history book that you have recently read. Okay? So this is an N double bar. I'm afraid I'm talking just to Natalie here and Otmani and Nuni Nunes, okay? The others, I don't know. Okay. So read, so I have an N double bar here, and you have a determiner, which is the, شنو عندي هنايا؟ The history book. That's true. Okay, history book. So I have an adjunct here اللي هي which etc. احنا نديروها هكا عفاكم. It's a CP, it's a C double bar, and that you have recently read. But because this was not covered, at least in the case of my students, I use the triangle that you have, etc. recently read. Okay, if you want me to work out this after I delete this, we can do it. Okay, so Picasso, thank you. So here, this is a relative clause. Okay, this is an adjunct because I have the real N bar here. هذه, it's a relative clause that is an adjunct. But the internal structure of this adjunct includes a movement you may not have covered if you have other classes, if you belong to a different university in the country. You see, but here, this involves WH movement in relative clauses. Okay, so let's focus on this, the history book. So here, N bar, and the complement, اللي هو history, N double bar, N bar, N0, okay, history, and then you have N0, which is book. Okay, so we have answered this question. And the second part of it is what? The constituent underlined provide arguments for the constituent underlined. So the constituent underlined is a noun phrase, and the arguments are substitution, for example. We can or pronominalization. You see, we can replace the history book that you have recently, etc., by the word it. I have read it. هذا argument واحد. Coordination, you are right. I have read. So that's Natalie's answer. We can use as a second argument coordination. كيفاش غنستعملوا coordination? It's by coordinating with a normal NP. I have read the بلاتي ما عقلتش عليها تالمو طويلة. Okay, I have read the history book that you have recently recommended to us and a nice novel. You see, we have coordinated two NPs. We can use clefting and preposing. Clefting, for example, it was the history book that you recommended. It was the history book that you have recently recommended to us that I have read, or what I have read was the historical, etc. Stylistically, you might want to displace the NP to front it, and you can say the history book that you have recently, etc., etc. I read. So when you displace the whole NP. That's the essence of it in clefting and preposing. Foregrounding. Foregrounding is more of a stylistic word. Clefting, preposing is more of a syntactic term, and foregrounding and discursive word is topicalizing. You see, or focusing and topicalizing, which is incorporated in recent syntactic theory, of course, recent models of syntactic theory. Okay, so we are done. And another argument in regard to this is that we can replace the whole thing by what when we ask a question. What did you read? It's like, what did you read? I'm asking about a short story. What did you read? The book that you have recently in the akhiri. How many arguments? As long as it is not specified, noni nonus, as long as it is not specified, you have arguments. 2 are arguments, 3 are arguments. So there is no limit unless the question specifies 2 or 3. In that case, you can do the job. Okay. Otherwise, here from 2 onwards. 1, no, because you have arguments. Okay. Ibtisam. Khasha, I'm sorry, sir, to bother you again with my question, but how can we distinguish between PP as an adjunct and as an argument? What do you mean, PP as an adjunct, as an argument? The prepositional phrase, yeah, this will depend on the question, my friend. Ibtisam, it will depend on the question. If the question gives you a sentence, and in this sentence you have a prepositional phrase, and you judge the prepositional phrase to be an adjunct, then you can say an adjunct. And if you are asked to argue for the existence for its adjunct status, you can use the 2 famous arguments. Complements are closer to the head than our adjunct, and the complement rule is not multiple, but we can multiply the adjunct rule. That's all. Okay. I'm afraid I cannot, but an adjunct can be an argument. Let me tell you. An argument can be, for example, when you are given the student of physics. Adjunct. Yeah, we will have an adjunct. How can you argue that the word that of physics, the prepositional phrase of physics, is a complement of students? Here, the best way of doing it is to go and borrow an adjunct from, create an adjunct. The student of physics in the classroom, I can add it. We have the right of adding. When we argue for something, you can say, well, if we add to it this element, it will be accepted this way, but not this way. So you can use the prepositional phrase, as an argument, for example, for the existence of a complement, for the complement status of physics. You can say, for example, if we have an adjunct, another prepositional phrase, the student in the classroom. So the student in the classroom of physics, it's not going to work. So we have used here the prepositional phrase also as an argument, etc. So I hope I have answered you, Ibtisam. Okay, professor, thank you. Me, Ibtisam, yeah. For example, the intelligent student of sociology from southern Morocco will finish his paper soon. Of sociology is a complement of the noun student, but still we can say, for example, but still we can say what? You mean we can say student without of sociology? Okay, I understand you, Ibtisam. For this specific question, okay, I'm answering Ibtisam. Then I'll read my other friends' comments. Ibtisam is saying the intelligent student of sociology from southern Morocco will finish his paper soon. So let's analyze this. The intelligent student of sociology, Ibtisam, because she asked me in private, and I prefer to answer her here, and she is repeating the question here so that, the information will reach as many students as possible. Ibtisam says the part of sociology can also be called adjunct. علاش? Because we can say the intelligent student from the southern إلى آخره, from southern Morocco. You see? So here, of course, because we can also say the student of physics with long hair or the student with long hair. But here of sociology specifies the noun. It's a complement. It completes the information about the noun. هذا رقم واحد. رقم جوج. هنايا we can introduce an adjunct as an argument, a preposition phrase as an argument. Can I say the student from southern Morocco of sociology? The fact that we cannot say this indicates that of sociology is a complement. That's argument one. Argument two, that of sociology is a complement. Can I say the intelligent student of sociology of geology? No. This indicates that of sociology is a complement because the complement rule is not recursive. It does not repeat. Ibtisam, I hope I have answered your question. Confirm or disconfirm, please. Si Mustafa says, Ibtisam says, this student, wait a minute. هنا ما بقيناش في هذا، راه خص يكون the student. This ولينا في it's deictic. You know, it's deictic. It's like you're pointing to, you are using a demonstrative here. No, the student, if we have the student, you can use the arguments I have given you. Okay, this student means the student of physics. So there is a little difference between using this and the. The probably requires more definition. When you say this, it means that you are pointing, you are in a physical environment where you may not refer to of sociology because it's known, because you are looking at this. That's the semantic explanation of the thing. Okay, so I think the best way of judging whether a component is an adjunct or a complement, even if you don't have an adjunct present there, you try to invent one and insert it between the noun and its sister, the head and its sister node, that is to say the complement. If it works, it means it's an adjunct. If it does not work, it means it's a complement. That's all. As simple as this. The same thing if you are given a prepositional phrase which is an adjunct and you want to argue that it's an adjunct, try to insert a complement in between. Okay? And try to do the reverse, just to so the same arguments can be used for the adjunct status of a prepositional phrase, as the ones that can be used to the argument of the other element. So adjuncts, complements may have the same arguments. Take an element, insert it between the verb and the complement, and see if it works. Try to reverse them and see what it gives you. Try to multiply them and see what it gives you. Donc, complement adjunct difference كدور غير هنايا. So it's just in these arguments, just in placing and multiplying, maybe producing another similar of the history of geography. That's a very good argument. Okay, nice. So can we? I don't know whether we can call it a day or we can. Do we have? So let me finish with you this and then call it a day. Explain C-comment relations and provide an illustrative example. C-comment. What is C-comment? C-comment, all the questions, most of the questions about C-comment go back to the two conditions or boil down to the two conditions that are famous now. Alpha C-comments beta if and only if the first branching node dominating alpha also dominates beta. And alpha does not dominate beta, nor does beta dominate alpha. Or if you want to do it in terms of x and y, then x C-comments y if and only if the first branch dominating x also dominates y, and x does not dominate y, and y does not dominate x. So we have answered part of the question. Now, the famous illustration of this is to use clauses where you have an antecedent and an anaphor, like the case where we have reflexive pronouns. She liked herself. She likes herself. Herself here is C-commented by she. Okay? Because if you have a tree diagram, she liked herself. We have she here and herself here. And she, because the first branching node dominating she also dominates herself. And this does not dominate this. She does not dominate herself, and herself does not dominate she. That's the illustrative example. I think we have answered the question this way. All right. Now let's move on, unless you have questions here. Donc, C-comment, just learn the two conditions there. Okay, A C-comment, Natalie says, A C-comments B if A does not dominate B and B does not dominate A, and the nearest branching node above A dominates B. That's a nice way of saying it too. Okay, so we reduce that, Natalie, into two conditions. الأولى هي first branching node هي اللي immediately dominates So the node that immediately dominates X also dominates Y. ماشي immediately بالضرورة. Also dominates. هذا الفوق هذا كاين ثلاث. Okay? And the two elements do not entertain a dominance relation. That's it. That's it. And the illustration, the best illustration, I have given it to you. Okay? Or if you cannot think of a reflexive program, provide any sentence in a small sentence in a tree diagram and say, for example, A, C comments B, and go home. That's it. You have answered the question. Briefly account, that's the other example, the other question. Briefly account for the ungrammaticality of the following sentence. I will not be able to read that journal article, that message you have sent. Look at this crazy sentence. Okay, tell us. I will not be able to read that journal article, that message you have sent. What is the principled way of accounting for the ungrammaticality of this sentence? One way of doing it, one pre-syntactic way or non-syntactic way, is to say that this is incorrect. We should say it this way, but this is not what we're looking for. It's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a principled account, means a piece of information, an explanation that is informed by syntactic theory. Tell us. So you have to answer, my friends, the 17 people or so I have here. It looks like the followers here are fast asleep while I talk. I don't know. Okay, let me tell you, since you do not interact. Okay, in this specific example, I will not be able to read that journal article, that message you have sent is a good example. Now, what we have here, Natalie, is position for that. No, it's not that. This is not. I'm afraid this is not really it's far simpler than this. Aya Bensi says, being given that complements cannot be recursive, this is nice, yes. Complements cannot be recursive, this sentence is ungrammatical since we have two constituents as complements of the VP. That's true. This is like saying the student of physics, of mathematics. Thank you. The verb read is intransitive, it assigns one complement. So it's monotransitive nuni nunus, or just transitive. Call it transitive. Mashi intransitive. Because if the verb is intransitive, it will not give you any complement. It does not subcategorize for a complement. Nuni nunus. Please correct this, please. It's transitive. Yes, very good. Nuni nunus. Okay, so I take Aya's answer to be, the one, the straightforward way of saying this. Let me check again just to see what. Okay, we have read the. I will not be able to read that journal article. That message you. Now, message here is not a verb, Natalie. So that maybe. So I thought that you that is a demonstrative here. It's not a relative pronoun. Okay, nice. So thank you. Okay, that's fine. Now for sentence 2, what do you suggest for sentence 2? For sentence 2, he decided her to leave. Was when he decided her to leave. Just imagine we have this. So what will be the problem here? He decided her to leave. I will not answer until you suggest. He decided her to leave. Nuni nunus, go ahead. Nuni nunus, we have Aya, we have Natalie. These are the ones that... So out of the 19 people here, I have just 2 or 3, but I can understand that. I'm sure you are very tired and many of you are stressed. You are like like vowels, stressed. Okay. He should not leave her. Wait a minute. He decided her to leave. No, no. Who is giving me this answer? Nuni Nunus. Natalie, this has to do with what Nuni Nunus is saying. Yeah. So you have Nuni Nunus and you have LKM. And then, okay. So we have the explanation by Nuni Nunus is that to leave is a non-finite. Yak. LKM says it's not conjugated. Afakum, not conjugated, the word not conjugated, I use it just to make life easy for you when it comes to understanding. The correct term is to say that it's non-finite. The info is non-finite, okay? Non-finite. So here we have a non-finite info. And when we have a non-finite info, it means that it's not a case assigner anymore. It cannot assign case to the subject NP. So when I say he decided her to leave, her here will be caseless. Why? Because we have to leave, which is a non-finite info, so it cannot assign anything there. Okay? So we have to delete that her because that's the place for the big pro, as Aya rightly says, considering the fact that non-finite verbs cannot assign nominative case, the subject of the clause to leave must be a covert NP or a pro. Very good, Aya. Thank you. That's really interesting. Indeed, that's indeed the thing. Now let's move on to the last question. Draw a tree diagram for the following sentence and account for any movement processes it involves. If there is no movement, explain why. Substantiate your claim by means of relevant arguments. Your elder brother tried to reach us on the phone. Isn't this a gift? Ibtisam says, to leave is non-finite. We cannot have nominative case assigned. Thank you very much. You are saying the same thing. That's very interesting. Yes, 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 absolutely. Absolutely. It, her, not it. Okay, good. Now, for the last sentence, tell me how many movements are there? Are there any movements in the last sentence, please? Tell me, please. Nuni Nunus comes to say that there are no movements or there is no movement. And she is right. Thank you. No. So, of course, in this sentence, there is no movement. And this is corroborated by Aya Binsi, Miss Aya. Tried is a control predicate. Nuni Nunus, very good. That's true. And I'm this movement because I don't have a same type verb, for example. Tried is not a same type verb. Okay, so the representation of this sentence is tried, and then you have a CP where the subject is big pro. So because it's a covered NP, it survives case filter. All right, Safi, it's fine. Now, your elder brother, elder here is an adjunct of brother, you know that. Tried to reach us on the phone. Yes, on the phone here is an adjunct. Us here is the complement of the verb to reach. Is that okay, my friends? Do you have any specific questions before we call it a day? The battery is very low. I mean, the energy, my energy has given out already. So if there are questions that you think I can answer, I would love to answer them. Otherwise, if you want to use the remainder of this night to maybe to prepare and to revise, and that will be a good thing. Okay, مرحبا نوني نونس. Okay, it has been a nice session. Thank you, سي مصطفى. سي مصطفى هذاك الدكتورة ديالك انت. I'm looking forward to attending it, really. Okay, thank you. So LKM case filter. Case filter, LKM is asking about case filter. Thank you very much, Nuni Nunus. Many thank you. You say generous. Thank you. Marhaba, marhaba. Thank you, Atimad. Thank you, Natalie. Case filter, before I leave, I have a question about case filter. LKM, specify your question, please. Specify your question. Selma Al-Khazimi, LKM, thank you. Okay, LKM says case filter like this, and later on she says thank you. Okay, so I thought that you would ask a question about case filter, but I think it's known now. Case filter says that you cannot have a noun phrase if the noun phrase is caseless. Where can we find case? Mostly, I mean, we are focusing on two. It's accusative case, nominative case. There are other cases like oblique case, genitive case, etc. But so here, nominative case is assigned by a finite info. Accusative case is assigned by the verb. If we don't have these conditions, it means that we are violating case filter, unless this has to do with a pro, means a covered NP. And a covered NP, is off the hook. It does not, it can survive case filter, no problem, because it's not a lexical item. Okay, my friends, I wish you all the best. Good luck with your exams. Just some concentration and some self-confidence, and specifically the accuracy of your writing. So mind, I'm not saying be Shakespearean in your writing, no, but just write in a simple and direct way, and try to avoid mistakes. When you write your paragraph, read it from the point of view of the corrector. Assume that you are the one who will correct. See if there are problems. The capitals, capital letters, and these little things that can, sometimes lower your grade or raise it. These little things that if you are accurate when it comes to when you are accurate when it comes to punctuation, like capitalization, agreement problems, language use, try not to be like, not to speak like a native speaker. Don't write as if you speak. It's easy. I mean, I'm not saying that this is challenging, no. And maybe we could have tomorrow, and then after the exams will start, it's a good idea to start how to start. And I gave you this advice earlier by producing perhaps paragraphs like that. It's some training also on the handwriting. Okay, nice. So Aya Binsi, thank you, Professor. This has been a very informative live stream. Thank you very much. Inshallah, Aya, you are welcome. More interesting stuff will come up, inshallah. Nathalie Leblanc, and manage the stress before and during the exam. That's true. You need to drink some water before and breathe, and don't leave stress. Let stress dominate you. That's for sure. That's true. Mustafa Murshid, I apologize for not being able to actively participate in the sessions, Professor, as I am trying to finalize my thesis. That's very good. Si Mustafa, which means that we will see you soon as a doctor, inshallah, because you deserve, your vast state of knowledge is proof to this, and your active participation in these, your interest in matters that are academic is evident. Okay, inshallah, I will proudly be a jury member if I am asked to be in your thesis, of course. Otherwise, I will just attend. I will be, in the audience, an audience. I will attend anyway, inshallah. Thank you. So LKM, don't be pessimistic. Says stress, who manages us. Okay, nice. So I wish you all the best anyway. الله يكمل بخير إن شاء الله. أتمنى لكم النجاح كاملين، سواء الناس اللي غيدوزوا BA exams ولا undergrad exams ولا الماستر ولا الدكتورate. إن شاء الله نشوفكم shining all the time. Keep motivated. Without motivation, you can ruin yourself. So be motivated, develop a positive attitude. Do not listen to people to the left and to the right who under or who do not consider the value of being interested in academia, of learning, and this is this is all the more, this is advantages. This is advantages to a large degree. Okay, so thank you, and I wish you all the best. So let's meet on another occasion, inshallah. If there is any urgent request later on, I need to receive it in a private message. Okay, so that I can come live, because most of these lives are responses to requests made by students. Okay, so have a good time, and I wish you all the best.